Hey guys, today is October 19th, 2017. And besides being October 19th, 2017, it's also the Great Shakeout. And the reason I want to bring this up is if you live in an earthquake-prone area, this is a reminder. It's essentially the day to kind of an emergency preparedness for people to live in an earthquake zone. It's very similar to like when daylight savings time, you're supposed to check your smoke detectors, make sure that the batteries are good. Well, the same goes for the Great Shakeout. And it's usually around October 20th, October 19th this year. I don't know why, but regardless, the point is this, is if you live in an earthquake-prone area, there are a couple things you should do. One is know what to do when you have an earthquake. And the motto is to drop, cover, and hold on. I had to look down at that, but it's drop, cover, and hold on. And if you're in an earthquake and there's an active earthquake, remember that to drop, cover yourself, get under a desk, get under something strong, and hold on until the shaking's over with. Beyond that, and this is a thing you can check, you can go onto Google and you can check any, if you just type in the Great Shakeout, you'll find tons of information available that will point you to resources and things that you should do in case you have an earthquake, or an emergency preparedness kit that is, such as water and food for 3 days, some lines of communication and a plan for where to meet your family, etc. So that's one thing. Now, beyond that, though, I wanted to bring your attention to this because while today is the Great Shakeout, there have been numerous natural disasters here lately, and whether it was, and it's been from coast to coast. It hasn't been selective. Whether it's the hurricanes that have struck the southeast part of the United States, whether it's the wildfires that have been just raging all summer long, or at least late summer in the west, and now down in Northern California, that you've got the fires that are taking out structures and buildings and actually killing people. And with the hurricanes, you've got the wind and the flooding that occurs. And so if you don't know already, I'm an insurance broker, and the reason why I bring this up is that all of these things are elements that you can insure against the damage to protect your property and protect your livelihood. And the point I wanted to bring up, and this is why I bring this up, is that every day when disaster strikes, I get an email from an insurance company letting me know that they've placed a moratorium on offering new coverage in the area that's affected by the disaster. So whether it be a hurricane is spinning off the coast of Texas or Florida, and there's anticipated damage and flooding, the companies will place a moratorium saying, we will not bind any new coverage in the area that's likely to be affected. Okay, if you have an earthquake that strikes, companies will place a moratorium that says we will buy no more new coverage for 30 days. And the reason being is that there's a lot of times there's aftershocks that can cause a great deal of damage. In the case of wildfires, insurance companies will place a moratorium on the areas that are immediately being affected by wildfires and the areas that are likely to be affected by the wildfires based on where they're expected to go. And so, I think a lot of people would say that insurance is like gambling, and I think it's hard to argue otherwise. Insurance companies are betting that you are not going to have an accident, you're not going to have any damage occur to your property, but they're not willing to bind coverage when you're calling from the scene of a fire as the fire trucks pull up. Okay, so you just have to know that that's not the game they play. If you see a hurricane or you're expecting some flooding to occur, and you call to bind coverage, the policies have a 30-day wait period. So if there's a storm that's approaching your property, or where you live, or where your property is, your coverage won't be good for 30 days. Know that. I already talked about the earthquake and the flood. If there's a named windstorm, hurricane that's spinning off the coast, insurance companies will not offer coverage in the areas, again, that are affected until those storms have passed. Okay? Well, if you think about it, put yourself in the insurance company's shoes. Would you agree to offer life insurance to somebody that was overweight and smoked and had just had a heart attack, and they called up and say, I want to buy some life insurance? That may not be the best bet unless you're willing to offer, if they wanted $1 million worth of coverage, I'm assuming the coverage would cost close to $1 million. But that's not necessarily, essentially a gambling. That's basically a sure bet. We'll hold your money until the claim happens. So essentially, my message to you today is this, is that if you live in an area that's potentially affected by, whether it be earthquake, remember this is the great shakeout, flooding, windstorm, or fire, don't delay in buying the coverage, because when you think about it, it costs a little bit of money to buy the coverage, but God forbid if you have an accident that could wipe out your property, your livelihood, your income, you're risking a lot, and I encourage you to check that out. I want to point out too, in the show notes I'll have there's a couple of interviews I've done in the past that address these specific things. One was with Steve Gamble regarding, it was actually the episode number 22, where we talked about retrofitting, seismic retrofitting for properties. I also talked with Allie, I can't remember her last name, but I'll put it in the show notes. It was episode number 17 about earthquake preparedness. And then also there was an episode on flooding and also what you can do to save on flood insurance, because they're redrawing the flood maps right now. And if your property comes up as being in a flood zone, there's a possibility that the structure is not in the flood zone, but that the property is in the flood zone. So you want to take a look at that. Okay, and with insurance, here's what I think you need to recognize, okay? There's the property you're insuring, which is the building, the contents, and don't forget your business income or loss of rents. Okay, that's the property you're insuring. And then you're insuring it against damage, the perils that could cause the damage. Now, the perils are whether it be earthquake, flooding, fire, wind. Those are the perils, okay? And so remember, the property is what you own. The perils are what could cause the damage to your property, and that's what you're trying to insure against. So with that, I hope you found this useful. If you are in an earthquake zone today, please at 1019, remember to practice your drop cover and hold on, and be sure you have an earthquake kit, for your family, and some sort of an action plan. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.